Daniel Favors on SiriusXM's Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. Hi, YouTube. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's good to see you all again. Urban View, we just listened to a clip from Gary Chambers where he was basically talking about the fact that what y'all can't do is just go into the voting booth with prayer. Because if you just go into the voting booth with prayer, what he say you're going to come out with? A prayer, a hope, and a prayer. Now, we just had the amazing Tamika D. Mallory here. You guys will get a chance to see the interview we had with her when it posts to YouTube in just a few days. But one of the things we were talking about was the role in which we have to play in this particular moment, right? And we asked her about the lessons she had learned from organizing with white women, because as a member of the 92%, y'all a little suspect. Y'all a little suspect, not really trying to rock with too many non-melanated folks right now. So, but she had a lot of good insight to say. But it's so important that we recognize that even as we consider what it is we need to do as it pertains to how we show up in this country, we have to also be clear. This is something I said at the beginning of the show. We have to also be clear that the entire world is watching what's happening right now. And so today I want to talk just briefly. I know we got to take some calls to the in just a minute. But one of the things I want to get to is this notion that as difficult and as oppressive as this moment might feel to us here in the United States, this is a global issue. Elongated muskrat and the lost boys, the flying, what is it? The flying boys, the lost confederacy, the flying monkey boys of the lost confederacy. That's how I've been referring to the teenagers and the young adults who are basically the hacking squad that has been unleashed into the government at this point. But we have to be clear that this is a national issue. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. We have to be clear, this is an international issue. I shared with the Urban View audience earlier this morning a conversation I had with one of my dear friends from law school who's from Nigeria. And I was telling her about my friend from Suriname, who basically said that decades ago, she's 14 years old, she leaves out the house to go to school. And then while she's in school, there are gunshots. And that morning when she went to school, she went to the school and they lived in a democracy. There were some gunshots. And then when she left school, they were in a dictatorship. And it took 40 years for them to get out of the dictatorship. And my friend from Nigeria, with whom I was talking this weekend, says to me, oh my God, that's exactly how it felt when I was growing up in Nigeria. Before I came here, you would go to school, you would get rumors that something was happening, there would be gunshots, and then everybody just stayed home. And you stayed home because you didn't know what was coming next. You didn't know what was going to happen, and you didn't know who was going to win. And so the people who won the coup would just basically, they would take over. And then you would hear an announcement that such and such a group is now in leadership of the government. And that's how the government changed. That because they didn't have a democracy with voting and elections that were respected. It was just, oh, it's somebody else with bigger guns that done busted up into the White House or the presidential palace. Boom, they in power now. And that's how it went. And that's how it went. And I say this because it's so important for us to know, because we as Americans, and I know it's weird to say that because I'm a Black girl, but as an American Black girl, one of the challenges that we have is that we are not necessarily as internationally thoughtful as we need to be. Right. And particularly if a lot of us, we just not, we think about what's happening here. Most of us barely know what's happening as it pertains to the news cycle in this country. But if I travel to other countries, not only do they know what's happening with our celebrities, they also know what's happening with our political realities. Frankly, I have traveled to other countries and they knew what was happening with our political reality better than we do. And they know what's happening with theirs. So I'm encouraging us to right now really think about what news sources we're listening to, where we're getting access to information, because the reality is the rest of the world is also implicated by what is happening. Now, last week we talked about this yesterday, but last week we saw Junior Vice President cheerleader J.D. Vance next to co-president Donald Trump, who were basically it was an ambush to President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, listen, I want to be very clear. I ain't really got no nickels in none of these dimes between the Russians, the Ukrainians, and what all is happening, except for the fact that I am a citizen of the world. And as a citizen of the world, then it's important for me to be clear that even though like that ain't my business, that's my business, because if them nukes start flying, it ain't but so much that living in Brooklyn is going to do to help keep me safe. Okay, so I want us to be mindful of what's going on, because the rest of the world saw what was happening. And now it appears as though it's not just elongated muskrat against the Democrats. It's not just elongated muskrat against the people who didn't vote for none of this bullshit that the doggy administration, which some of y'all like to call Doge, I call it doggy. It ain't just what he's doing here. It's elongated muskrat against the world, baby, against the world. So what we have to be clear about is, again, he's not just toying around and messing here. He tried to get involved in Germany's election. He was promoting the Nazi group because, of course, he is like a whole ass Nazi affiliated person. I can't call him an actual Nazi, but he's Nazi adjacent. His behaviors indicate Nazi adjacency. But what has been so interesting about this is that elongated muskrat has gotten a lot of the attention, and we've paid less attention to Donald Trump. The reason why that is a mistake is because of an article that I read this morning from the Financial Times called Latin America Sees a Familiar Figure of Caudillo in Trump. Now, caudillo, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a Spanish word. It's spelled Caudillo. Caudillo. It basically means the strong man. And while we are in America clutching our American pearls, aghast that somebody has actually assumed a position in the White House that has done away with all the pretense, that is no longer pretending that we are a whole ass democracy. They are instead running roughshod all over everybody and everything. And so we are clutching American pearls here, but the rest of the world is like, oh, no, this is familiar. This we understand. That fake thing that Americans used to do where they pretended to be all in support of democracy in USA. That fake thing where they would pretend to be democracies in the United States of America, but then they would send their military into Latin America and destabilize our governments. Oh, now this is familiar. That fake thing that Americans used to do where they would pretend that they were all in favor of democracy and they would fund all of these soft power projects until they stopped funding the soft power projects and cut all the funding internationally, which is going to do a whole host of things that pertains to exploding rates of malaria, rates of polio, rates of measles, rates of tuberculosis. The amount of programs that got cut from USAID, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we're now seeing the implications thereof. The level of sickness and disease that is about to be unleashed on the world once again because of the withdrawal of those funds is going to be devastating. And guess what? It's going to come back to these United States because unfortunately, germs don't stop at borders, just like bird flu don't stop at borders. But Latin America is basically like, oh no, this we understand. This is a strong man. We get it. Brash and uncouth, unpredictable, ignores the laws, quoting the will of the people, prefers quick deals to trusted intermediaries to government policies. Everything that Donald Trump is doing right now is a classic example as to what was usually happening when it comes to strong men or dictators in Latin America. They talked about the fact that Donald Trump is unpredictable, capricious, and vengeful, like the Latin American caudillos. This is Enrique Krause, who is a Mexican historian and a writer. He compares the U.S. leader with tyrant Banderas, who is a fictional South American despot in a novel written by a Spanish writer who talks about strongmen and what they do. Now, one of the reasons this is interesting is because in addition to the rest of the world watching what's happening in the United States and be like, oh, you know, that look familiar. That look like a dictator. That we understand. We don't understand that fake American bullshit that y'all be doing, talking about you love democracy, but then you hate democracy unless it benefits you financially. This we understand. What's also happening is elongated muskrat coupled with Donald Trump is causing some problems for the world. Now, we talked briefly last week about the fact that Verizon already had this contract with the federal government. Multi-billion-dollar contract for satellites and for providing a lot of data and accessibility when it comes to cyber networks. Well, guess what, y'all? Elongated muskrat was like, I see this contract and I don't like it, so we're gonna cancel it. I know that's a bad elongated muskrat accent, but it's the one I got for now. Y'all work with me. I'll figure out a better accent for him in just a bit. So basically, elongated muskrat is now manipulating the contracts between the United States government and private corporations, not so that the contracts no longer exist, but so that elongated muskrat can get access to the contract. Y'all, he trying to cancel the contract with Verizon so that it can go instead to Starlink, his company. Now, at a certain point, the corporations of the world who are getting their asses handed to them by elongated muskrat and his machinations with the caudillo of America, Donald Trump, they're going to have an issue with this. But what you also need to know is that elongated muskrat, everything he's doing, it has nothing to do with canceling debt. It has nothing to do with getting rid of the amount of money America owes. It has all to do with him getting access to benefits for himself. We see from Matthew Cook, who is a reporter, Oscar-nominated film writer and filmmaker and writer. One of the things that he talks about was this massive amount of money that elongated muskrat is saying that doggy or Doge is saving the American people, but it's actually just being repurposed and going into his pockets. They talk about the massive public subsidies. So his companies, elongated muskrat's companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Solar City, the Boring Company. Y'all want to know how much money they done got? $5 billion in direct taxpayer-funded subsidies and billions more in indirect benefits. SpaceX alone has gotten over $15 billion in governmental contracts, largely from NASA and the U.S. military. Oh, the same NASA that they were trying to fire scientists from and replace them with elongated muskrats employees, the same way when they got rid of the head of the FAA and they got rid of all the air traffic controllers and all the people who are designed and whose job it is to keep our airplanes in the sky to keep us safe. Remember how they fired them? And the elongated muskrat tweeted how they needed a safe air system in this country. So the Starlink employees, the engineers that work for him, are going to take them jobs. Y'all, the jokes write themselves. Electrical vehicle tax credits and carbon credits. According to the report, Tesla it would never have been profitable had it not been for years where they were able to get government mandated carbon credits and they were selling them to legacy automakers. They were basically not geniuses. They were really good thieves. Really good thieves, union busting and tax avoidance. The report goes on to say Tesla has fought labor protections. They have benefited from low wage, high risk jobs. And I know y'all remember the issues of racism, the allegations of racism that were being levied at Tesla that resulted in a variety of judgments and settlements against him. And so this reality that we're living in, where there is this pretense that elongated muskrat and the lost monkey boys of the Confederacy are essentially saving America money. No. They're canceling contracts and repurposing them for the benefit of elongated muskrat. But now it's taking on an international flavor. Carlos Slim, his real name, is a businessman in Mexico, Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim, because now it's the battle of the billionaires, right? Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim has, quote, decided to cancel his collaboration with Elon Musk's Starlink. This was a contract of nearly $30 billion. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. No, 22, 20, nearly 25, but let me give you the exact number. Hold on. Let me get the right number because I know I like to be accurate because I don't have to make a correction. Here we go. $22 billion. I thought it was 29, which is why I said almost 30. It was $22 billion over the next 3 years. This was a contract that Carlos Slim's company, America Movil, was going to essentially engage in contracting with Starlink so that they would be able to expand their telecommunications infrastructure. Carlos Slim is like, what I'm seeing is some bullshit. And we have this also additional issue in that elongated muskrat was basically talking loud about shit, what is that phrase? Writing checks your ass can't cash. Basically doing that online and talking about Carlos Slim, this other billionaire, in a way that basically implied he had a connection between his businesses and organized crime. So Carlos Slim is like, oh, okay, really? For real? Boom, contract canceled. Instead of relying on elongated muskrat, this this Mexican billionaire is going to instead take that money and invest in their own telecommunication system. We're also seeing entire retirement systems all across Europe pull out all of their investments from Tesla and any companies that have any investments in all of elongated muskrat's business dealings. The entire world is like, we smell some funkiness and it smells like musk. Oh, it's stanky up in here. We don't want nothing to do with your ass because you trifling. And what's happening with America right now is some triflingness that's going on. And so the rest of the world is like, yeah, no, we're not doing this. We canceling your contract. We were pulling out all of our investments in your companies. The rest of the world is noticing. They are paying attention. Why does this matter on a day like today? Oh, could it also be that this is really important? Because as of, midnight tonight, tariffs are back. Tariffs are back as against Mexico, as against Canada, and as against China. And so from groceries to cars, says the New York Times, tariffs could raise prices for U.S. consumers. New tariffs on goods from Canada, Mexico, and China take effect on Tuesday, which will likely result in higher prices for Americans. We're also seeing the rest of the world is a little concerned with America's stock market exchanges over investment in AI and technology because they suspect a bubble might be afoot. And if the bubble is afoot and the American financial system has over invested in the bubble, then the rest of the world is like, You ain't gonna catch us out here with another Great Depression, part 2, part 3, part 4. No, we not doing this. And so they're pulling back. The stock market is getting a little skittish. Now, as a regular schmegular degular kind of sister, I know the stock market don't mean a whole lot to the rest of us out there. But what is going to mean a whole lot is the fact that these tariffs are now in place. What we're seeing is that for American families, according to the New York Times report, the likely result is higher prices nearly everywhere you turn. Grocery aisles, car dealerships, electronic stores, and at the pump. On Tuesday, they say new levies on goods imported from Mexico, Canada, and China go into effect, according to the executive orders issued by the Trump administration. All products coming from China, 20% tax, up from 10%. All goods imported from Mexico and most goods from Canada are subject to a 25% tariff. These were originally going to take place in February. We talked about them at the beginning. Donald Trump delays them for a month, saying that we're going to reach some sort of deal. And remember the deal that they reached, which is basically where Mexico and Canada was like, yes, Donald, we are going to do a deal with you and we will give you things that make the deal final. Come to find out, the things that they gave, that the Trump administration accepted, were things that they had already given under the Biden administration. So this was much ado about nothing. Well, the Trumpster fire is back. And that coupled with this worldwide growing revulsion at people are disgusted at what's happening with elongated muskrat, disgusted at what's happening here in the nation, and making financial decisions to move on. Making financial decisions to reevaluate. We're also seeing on the front page of the Times, which is again a paper that I use. Sorry for the rustling papers. Actually, I'm not sorry. We need to learn how to read print media. So sorry, but not sorry. What we're also seeing is that as a result of that fiasco that took place in the Oval Office, the European nations is like, well, we don't know what the good goddamn is going to happen with Ukraine and America. But what we do know is that on the other side of Ukraine is us. And so if Russia is continuing to invade Ukraine, what us going to have to do is protect ourselves. They are now moving to seize more than $200 billion of Russian assets that have been frozen, because they're basically saying, America, we don't know what kind of ceasefire deal y'all trying to work out with all this shit that's happening with elongated muskrat and the situation he got with, you and the Lost Boys and Donald and the JDs. We don't know what's going on. But we know we're going to create a ceasefire on our terms. And so we are continuing to see a shift in the polemics of global power and authority. We are continuing to see how the rest of the world is saying to America, what the entire hell is going on? You know what? We don't even give a good goddamn what's going on over there. We are going to protect ourselves. So this is very much a challenging time. And tonight, you're going to hear some of this challenge, because there is going to be a State of the Union where that man, Orange Mango Mussolini, is going to get in front of the Congress. And quite frankly, I don't even know. Have we heard anything about people in Congress who are protesting by not going? I haven't heard anything about whether or not Democrats are going to show up, whether they're not going to show up. We're not sure what's going to happen there. But the reality is, we're at a time right now where it would be, if it was me in Congress, and it never will be, because what I will never do is run for office. You have my word on that. But if it was me in office, the last place I would be sitting at the State of the Union, listening to this man lie as a lying liar who lies. But what you can do is watch the State of the People. What's the website for that event again? State of the People. I think it's stateofthepeople.media. This is an effort that has been pulled together by activists, organizers, people who are doing the work of making sure that our communities have accurate information. That is happening. It's literally happening right now. It started at 12 o'clock this morning, and it is continuing through until 11:59 tonight. I will be making a cameo appearance in the 6 o'clock hour with the amazing Reese Colbert and Clay Kane. Literally, it's going to be a cameo, because I got 57 other things that's happening this evening that I have to get to. But I'm excited about it. And that's where my attention is going to be. I need us to be crystal clear right now that a lot of fugazi things are about to pop off. And one of them is going to be a real hit to our finances and economy. I'm going to need y'all to save your money. Okay? I'm going to need y'all to save your money. I need you to follow people who are helping us to get good with money, like Tiffany Aliche. Get Richer Challenge is something that she has ongoing. Get Good with Money is her book. You need to get that book, because right now, the financial situation that this country is about to find itself in is going to feel hella fugazi, because it is. Because we've got Donald the Con Trump running the office or running the presidency as a pretend president. We've got the real president, elongated muskrat, who's pissing off every damn body in every continent. And we've got JD, junior varsity cheerleading Vance, who is basically a part of a white Christian nationalist religious order that wants to make sure that the only people who get to vote or have any power are people with penises, be they small or not. Save your money. Focus on what matters. Get your house in order. Get your house in order. These people are fucking around and they're doing some things that are going to have a very destabilizing impact. We don't know what it is to be like my friend in Suriname who wakes up one day and by the end of the day, you done move from a democracy into a dictatorship that lasts 40 years. We don't know what it is. Like my friend from Nigeria who said, yeah, every so often you would just hear the gunshots and you just knew you had to stay home because you didn't know who was going to be in power after them gunshots ended and you waited for the announcement. We don't have that sort of, we ain't built like that in this country. Some of us are better prepared than others, however. And I need us to do what's necessary to get our communities safe, save your money. You might want to stock up on some food. Might want to get you some non-perishables. My mama was like, my mama living with us now. My mama was like, we need a freezer. we need a freezer, a deep freezer, because we need to buy some things and freeze some things. You might want to do what's necessary now to shore up your security, to shore up your resources. I'm going to be planting. I got my hydroponic system going. My mama was like, this ain't enough. We got to get our hands in the dirt. So she taking me outside and we're going to be planting outside in the yard. But we're at a moment right now, y'all, watch and be prayerful. Watch and pray is what the good books say, because these people are playing games that the vast majority of us are going to deal with the ramifications of. And I want us to be aware of what's happening. And we are not moving in a spirit of fear, because what the Bible say, the Lord did not give me a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. And it's going to be really important that we tap into that love, that we tap into that power, and that we tap into a sense of soundness when it comes to the decisions that we are making. Be in community. Be in community. What Tamika Mallory said, you ain't got to like everybody. We ain't got to agree on everything, but you need to be in community. If you are not a part of an organizing space right now, you better find one. You better connect with one. We are going to need it. Connect with the groups that are doing mutual aid in your communities. It's about to get rough. Between now and March 14th, what's happening? The budget is going to be finalized. What does that mean? That means that because March 13th is it's March 14th is the last day of the current budget. That current budget was a part of the continuing resolution that got passed at the end of last year. But remember what happened? How they tried to switch it up and they was trying to blame Joe Biden, and they wanted to expand the amount of money that the country could borrow to pay for debts because they wanted to give these permanent tax cuts to the billionaires and the millionaires, and they wanted to be able to blame the Democrats. They couldn't do that. They got to do it now. And if they don't do it now, before this budget ends, they're not going to get another shot before the next term. So we are in a moment where these wealthy white billionaires and millionaires are about to make some very dangerous decisions for this country. They are about to make these tax cuts permanent, and they're going to have to cut the social services that we rely upon in order to do so. That's why $800 billion in Medicaid is at risk. That's why Social Security is at risk, and they want to raise the age of retirement. That's why they want to get rid of Medicare funding. They want to cut SNAP and cut all the benefits that our people rely upon. Winter's about to be over, but it's about to be a cold transition to spring. And I want us to be prepared. I want us to be mindful. And I want us to be confident that when we do what we got to do, as Tamika Mallory told us, we win. We win. YouTube, we appreciate y'all. We love you. I didn't get to get the calls. Okay, I'm sorry. Now we almost at the end of the show, so it don't even matter. Sorry. Sorry, folks. 8668. Why am I giving out the number? We gotta go. YouTube, we appreciate you. We love y'all. Please like and subscribe. Actually, before we go, please like and subscribe and share. But to all of you, again, I just checked the numbers because I made this announcement at the beginning of the show. I just checked the numbers as it pertains to the podcast. And y'all, I don't know if you heard about the podcast from us on Sirius yesterday, because again, I did not do any promotion for this like I should have, but there was so much going on. It was the Black History Month last month, so I did not promote the way I needed to. But between yesterday and today, for us to have announced the podcast, Lurie Breaks It Down, where we are making it plain, making it simple. We are connecting the dots in ways that I think y'all will really appreciate. I just want to say thank you to every single one of you that went to, found Lurie Breaks It Down on your podcast, on your Apple, wherever you get your podcast. I thank you. because the download numbers were in freaking insane. And I'm so grateful that you found it and thought it not robbery to not just download the podcast, but to like it, to up whatever you thumbs up it, whatever y'all do on whatever respective platforms. I appreciate y'all, because without you, I'm talking to Amina. I'm talking to Amina and Jonah, and that's it. But I appreciate y'all. The numbers have been glorious. I am just really grateful. The podcast is Lurie Breaks It Down, available wherever you get your podcast. This is a part of the Women's Empowerment Network, and we are a part of the SiriusXM podcast family. And I'm just grateful, grateful, grateful. I will see some of you tonight at 6 o'clock. I'm doing a cameo appearance in the State of the People.media. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Continue to like, subscribe, and share the YouTube page. The same thing for the podcast. We got to freak these algorithms, because the misinformation and disinformation that is being aimed at us can only happen if we don't know how to manipulate the systems that these people have put in place to keep us oppressed. We're going to repurpose them systems and do what is necessary for our own freedom. Now I'm saying goodbye to YouTube. Thank you. Lurie Breaks It Down is the podcast. Make sure you check it out. I appreciate you. Urban View.